This module is all about the cost side of the profit formula. If you've taken managerial accounting, some of this will ring a bell, but some of it is different content because economists think a little differently than accountants. Here's the basic profit formula. The profit of any business is equal to its revenues minus its costs, or its sales minus its expenses. Those words are more or less interchangeable. This module is all about the cost side of the profit formula. I'm skipping over a couple slides. Here's some of the answers that understanding cost and understanding cost behavior helps with. What's the ideal level of output to maximize profits? Small business owners, small business managers in particular, always think the more business, the better. That isn't necessarily true. For example, when you're working your employees a lot of overtime because you have a lot of orders, on the surface you feel good, but think about how much that hour of overtime really costs you. First of all, it's going to cost you time and a half. And what if the employee's efficiency working lots of overtime is only 50%? If it was 50% when they're working a lot of overtime, an hour of overtime costs time and a half divided by 2, or essentially triple time. Is it good to take those additional orders? What prices should we charge? Is a question that'll be answered, or we can partially answer in this module. Is this business a good business to start or buy? We're going to be doing what's referred to as break-even analysis, which you probably did in one of your accounting courses, only we're going to expand the profit formula and make it a much more powerful tool. To do all this, we need to understand costs and cost behavior. Let's answer I think it was the first question first. What's the ideal output level of our company? Along the left margin, the left column is the quantity of whatever we're doing. The quantity of car repairs, the quantity of haircuts we're giving, the quantity of hours we're providing consulting, the quantity of cars we sell. Doesn't matter what the business is. Now let me identify the columns. Quantity is the first. Second column is price. And let's assume we're in what's called perfect competition, where there's so many competitors that everybody basically is charging the same price. The third column is called total revenue. The fourth column, total cost. The total revenue column is simply quantity times price. 0 times 12 is 0. 1 times 12 is 12. 3 times 12 is 36, etc. The total cost column comes from combining fixed costs and variable costs. The fifth column, where the pi symbol is the profit, simply comparing total revenue to total costs. 0 minus 15 is a loss of 15. 12 minus 25 is a loss of 13. If you look at the profit column, it looks like the optimum profit is maximized at $11.10. And move your pencil to the left, and that's at a volume of 8. 8 widgets, 8 units, whatever you're making or selling. Now you could go to 9 units. You're still making a profit of 10. You could go to 10 units. You're still making a profit of 7. But I would ask, why bother? Why should we make a 9th unit if we're actually making less profit? Why should we make a 10th unit if our profit is even less? Now there's another way to reach the same conclusion, and that's using what's called the marginal revenue, marginal cost approach. What we just covered a minute ago was the total revenue, total cost approach. Marginal revenue is the additional revenue achieved when you make and sell one more unit. Marginal cost is the additional money you're taking out of your pocket to provide or make that additional unit, that next unit. So for example, when we go from 0 units to 1 unit, revenue goes from 0 to 12, so our marginal revenue of the first unit is 12. When we go from 0 units to 1 unit, our total costs go from 15 to 25. So the marginal cost of making the first unit is 10. Does it make sense to go from 0 to 1 unit? Well, I'll be taking $10 out of my pocket for the privilege of putting 12 in. That's a pretty good deal. How about going to the second unit? Well, by making and selling the second unit, I take $8 out of my pocket to put $12 in. That's also a good deal. If you follow that all the way down to 8 units, at 8 units, I'm taking $11.90 out of my pocket for the privilege of putting 12 in. Still a good deal. But look what happens when I make the 9th unit. I'm taking $13.10 out of my pocket to make the 9th unit. I'm only putting 12 in. Not a good deal. The same thing happens when I make the 10th unit and the 11th unit. I'm taking more money out of my pocket than I'm putting in. This is how a business manager can determine the ideal output level of his company. This next recorded lecture is about understanding cost behavior. And this is where accounting-based decisions may be different than economically based decisions. Let's say you and a significant other show up at the no-tell motel at 2 a.m. You ask the clerk, how much is a room? The clerk looks at that laminated price sheet that the manager left for her or him and sees for one room the rate is $100. And the clerk quotes you that. You reach in your pocket, you find only $30. You tell the clerk, I only have $30. The clerk says, the boss's price sheet says $100. What do? You leave. You sleep in the car. What would have been a better answer or a better pricing strategy for the motel owner to have given to the clerk? Whether it's the afternoon shift, the midnight shift, makes no difference. Here's what an economist would say. An economist would say, how much does it really cost you? What's the marginal cost, the additional out-of-pocket cost of renting that room? There'll be no additional property taxes, no additional property insurance. The clerk is not going to get a raise or commission. The utility bill won't change appreciably. If it's in the winter, you have to leave the heat on anyway to keep the pipes from freezing. The additional costs, the incremental, the out-of-pocket marginal cost of renting that room would include, let's say, the laundry bill for the sheets and pillowcases. Maybe that's $3, I don't know. Let's assume the housekeeping person gets paid by the room. Let's say that's $10, so we're up to 13. The shampoo and the soap, another $1, that's 14. If you want to add some utilities, add $5, so that's 19. A better decision for the motel owner to have left, or the better price information the motel owner should have left for the clerk, was the marginal cost for me to rent the room is $19. If you can get anything above $19, go ahead and rent the room. Whether it's $19.01, whether it's $25, or whether it's $30. Because that marginal revenue of renting the additional room will exceed the marginal cost. So this is an example of how understanding cost behavior and understanding marginal costs and marginal revenue may help make better business decisions. Here's another example, which is much more real, perhaps, depending on what kind of job you may have. I've run into this myself a dozen times. A potential new customer approaches me. I'm the general manager of the XYZ company. He says, I have a huge order to place with somebody, either with you or one of your competitors. What's the best price you can give me? So I look at my price list, which gives different prices for different quantities. Of course, my accounting department helped me prepare this. And I look down the list to the very bottom where the maximum quantity happens to equal the quantity that this customer's order will be. And the price list says $20. I call the potential new customer back and tell him $20. The new customer says, you're out of your mind, starts laughing, and hangs up the phone. What should the general manager have done before quoting the $20? Think of what we just did with a no-tell motel. Wouldn't it be better for a potential new customer with a very large order to see what the real marginal cost, the out-of-pocket, the incremental cost would be to make that unit? It's very likely that the accounting department did not prepare that price list the way an economist would prepare the price list. Assuming if you get this order is incremental business you had not counted on in terms of establishing your overhead rate, you should price this order, or I've priced an order like this, on an incremental basis. What are the marginal out-of-pocket costs incurred, and set my price based on that. So you've heard me use sort of interchangeably those four terms in yellow: incremental cost, marginal cost, out-of-pocket cost, variable cost. Those are all interchangeable. We're going to spend a few minutes on comparing variable cost to fixed cost and the importance of understanding that.